Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Very nice to see a room packed with people who are here to hear the insights and the wisdom of Her Excellency Professor Dr. Elizabeta Georgievska. You are the First Lady of the Republic of North Macedonia, and we have the greatest honor and pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for making the time to come to the Women's Pavilion by EKSPO 2020 in collaboration with Cartier. I know you just did a tour. I hope you liked it. And we're really very grateful that you've taken time out of your very busy schedule.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. It's really an honor and really a great pleasure to share experiences with all these women and present here. Thank you for coming, and also women online, girls online.
Yes.
And I hope we can exchange experience, not just today, but during the whole series, so we can speak about gender balance, gender equality, and women empowerment. I mean, at the moment, what I see is that we have legislative changes, but actually they're not transferred in practice. So we have to work more on that.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. I want to tell our audience a little bit about you, if you would allow me. Not only are you the First Lady of the Republic of North Macedonia, you are a highly accomplished scholar. You are a tenured professor at the Faculty of Dentistry and the head of the Department of Pediatric and Preventive Dentistry at the SS Cyril and Methodius
University in Skopje.
Yes. And you have published over 90 academic papers and have taken part in a large number of international research projects. A woman of the world, really, of academia, but also a mother.
Thank you for the flattering introduction. I always say, and I just repeat it always, I don't find myself as a First Lady, and I usually tell everybody not to call me the First Lady, because I think we are all equal. Probably the name comes from the position of my husband, but as you said, I have done so much for myself, and I would like to be introduced as a professor, as a researcher, and as ultimately as a mother.
Wow, that's actually really beautiful, and I think it's something for us to take note of. I think there's something very empowering to hear a woman say, you know, regardless of my husband's accolades, I want to be introduced my way and based on what I've done. So that is really, for me, this is something I applaud you for. Today we have invited you to have a conversation under the series of Visions and Journeys. This series at our Women's Pavilion is developed and held of the Gender Balance Council. This Gender Balance Council was created by Her Highness Sheikh Manal, who's the president of the entity. It's our UAE machinery to create more gender balance through legislative reforms. And a lot of the successes that you actually see in the country was due to the work that they have done, the women on boards quota, the 50-50 parliamentary balance that we see. And so we are a country that has successfully been looking at and pursuing gender balance. And I know that in your country as well, there has also been a lot of work on legal policy frameworks and making sure that we have the right sort of frameworks in place. I want to perhaps start off our conversation and ask you to give us a little bit of an oversight of where North Macedonia stands right now. Tell us perhaps what are the most fundamental policy issues you feel strongly about from your perspective, from your personal view, because there's a lot.
Yes. Well, at the beginning, I would like to say thank you to Her Excellency and the women from the Gender Balance Council. We met, and I was really amazed with the work they're doing, and I applaud them for everything that they have done in such a short period of time. In fact, in our country, we have introduced several laws. I mean, basically, according to the Constitution, the women are equal to men, and they have the right to vote over 18 years old. In 2006, we had acknowledged the law, and it was introduced into the parliament, law on equal opportunities for women and men. And we have ratified the Council of Europe's Istanbul Convention on combating and preventing violence against women. And now we are doing a national action plan together with different institutions, for example, UNFPA, to do changes in the bylaws and in the provisions to get these moments from the convention to be applied in the laws in our country. So we need to take an action, especially in gender-based violence and domestic violence, because, the COVID-19 pandemic showed us that we need to be more resilient to these harmful practices. For example, during the lockdown, there was increase in the gender-based violence, increase in the domestic violence as well. And I would like to emphasize, we were doing a campaign with the UNFPA, together with the Ministry of Interior and the Ministry of Labor and Social Policy, on campaigning for the women to report when they're victims of violence, not just physical, but also psychological violence. And unfortunately, there was such an increase in the level of reporting. But there is another issue that we have to address. In fact, we have to have a more resilient society in terms of women empowerment, to have better access to the labor market, because the economic situation with women is really lower, and all the indices show that women earn less than the men. Even with the education they have, they earn less than men. Also, we need to do more to encourage women to pursue their career, because there are many women, especially in the mid-30s, that they just stop working because they are founding a family and having children. So we have to work on another type of models for like letting them work, for example, part-time working, or having, I saw yesterday in the government accelerator, there is a childcare unit, so the young mothers can have their children nearby and be happy with that and work without taking care of what is going on with that child. But otherwise, if they don't have that opportunity, they would have to stay at home. So maybe working online sometimes or some other models could help that these young women pursue their careers, they continue working, and therefore they can be adjusted to the labor market. And therefore they could be resilient to gender-based violence. They can, because what I was trying to say, there was a huge level of reporting of cases of gender-based violence, but unfortunately, most of those girls and women returned to their homes because they weren't happy there, but they didn't have the money to go and live by themselves. So they continue being under the pressure and with violence. So this is a really, really serious problem we have to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree with the correlation that you're making, that one way for us to address violence against women is to empower them economically so that they're not at the mercy of their abusers and they can stand on their own 2 feet. That's fascinating. When you look at North Macedonia now, is there a strategy or a policy that was adopted or something that happened in your country that you feel the rest of us could learn from, that you feel is transformative in empowering women? For example, I'll tell you about my country. One thing I'm always, very proud to talk about is that the UAE not only put in the right legal frameworks, but they also put in the right narrative so that people could buy into it, so that women's empowerment didn't just happen in a legal sphere, but it happened culturally as well. And it was due to our wise leadership who demonstrated their support for women, who talked about it, who convinced everyone in the society that this was the right thing to do. Wow. And the whole society moved forward, the laws moved forward, the culture moved forward, and I'm proud to say we're first in the region.
Yes.
So when we look at North Macedonia, what can we learn from you, from your country?
Well, at the moment, we have, there is not something which is transformative overnight. We have to do a work over years and maybe decades. And therefore, we started with getting the quotas, for example, 40% quota for women or underrepresented sex in parliamentary elections and local elections. So at the moment, we have almost 39-40% of women MPs and also many councillors in local self-government. But I don't think it's the ultimate solution. We have to work on fair verification of their work. So the merit system should be applied. And if we have 80% of women that can be good members of parliament, they should, why not? Mm-hmm. But we must say that at the beginning, the quota system is really helpful. But it's not the end. We have to do a lot more in the future.
Absolutely. I think I agree again with you. I think quotas are very important when we're trying to normalize, yes, right, the presence of women in certain spaces.
Yes, actually, I found this data about our country. North Macedonia is 23rd, rated 23rd in the world, and 6th in the OSCE region by representation of women in the parliament, which is really high level, even on world level. So not just regional, but on globally, yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about women's representation in academia.
Okay.
And specifically in the fields you're coming from. Can you tell us if you have faced any challenges? How did you overcome them?
Well, actually, I was doing a conference on women scientists. I think it was February this year. It was hybrid, and there were scientists from North Macedonia that live abroad, but it was still the situation with the pandemic, and they were not able to come. And also there were women scientists from the country that attended the conference. And it was really interesting to see that women are really dedicated scientists. And it's probably due to the emotional and intellectual, the articulated sensibility of women, which can be employed in other fields as well. But, for example, we have also high representation of women in science. In our country, we have about 53% women in science. But what's the problem? They're usually connected with healthcare. They're usually connected with social sciences, with, art. And most of the men are in the technical, the IT industry, business, so they earn much more. But actually the women's emotional status probably is associated with these kind of professions, and also we saw that also during the pandemic. Most of the healthcare workers were actually women, and they stood on the far front fighting with the pandemic. So we have to do a lot in the science and increase the level of women representation in all other fields. And at the end and the bottom line, it comes to the payment, which usually is really low compared to other branches of science. But in fact, I think that women are dedicated to what they do, and they do it meticulously, and they're really good in doing research. And in my opinion, I always encourage my students. I mean, there are many students that want to do research, and I, especially, when it comes to girls and when it comes to my women students, I try to empower them to pursue a research career as well, not just being a clinical practitioner, but also doing a research career there, to pursue master, PhD, specialization. As you can see from my bio, I have been doing some research for more than 2 decades in the UK. So several of my master's students, I sent them there, I got them fellowships, and they finished the research for their masters in the UK. So they can pursue their career with higher level research, which can be published in very important dental journals, which was not possible if they stayed in the country. So there are some ways to help young population and to let them know that we care about them. it's not just, just being a teacher. Everybody today with the internet, we can learn from the internet. We don't need just the teacher, but learning from personal experience is the thing that matters.
It's the mentorship, right?
The mentorship, the support. There were some students that wanted to give up, and especially if they got married or got children. But having in mind my own journey, when I had my son, it empowered me even more because I wanted him to have an accomplished mother and a mother that he is going to be proud of. So it's not just for us, but for our children as well, and of course for the community.
Did you have any mentors to help
yes.
you?
My husband came into the story. I have to say this. He's going to be ashamed, sorry. But when I received this fellowship, and he said, if you're going to the top university in the UK. So I applied to King's College London, and I was accepted. And there I met one of the most generous, most kind professors I have ever met so far, and I'm proud to call him my friend because we have worked together for more than 20 years from then, and we are family friends now with his family, his wife and his children. So, and he's one of the people that showed me that even the brightest minds, he's one of the most famous professors in the world in this field. I work with dental biomaterials. So he taught me that you have to be, you can be really accomplished, but you have to be humble and you have to be modest and yet be generous towards the others. Help the others, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be sitting here discussing my research career.
You're the first academic woman we've had here, so
I'm happy.
Forgive me, I'm gonna really actually insist on some, because I want to personally learn more. If in the exhibition that we have downstairs, there's something we refer to called the Matilda effect. And it is a phenomenon that took place where women were making scientific discoveries, they were writing the papers, they were doing the research, and the credit was going to the men. So, your thoughts?
Well, I think that maybe in the last years things are beginning to change, and to be honest, I haven't had that problem any time so far. I mean, I was always equal to everybody I've worked with, and I think it might have been probably a thing from the past mostly. But during this conference I mentioned before, I heard some advocacies from women scientists throughout the world that they have had the same problem. So as young scientists, their mentors or supervisors it's not just used, but they were like taking the credit for the research. And So to say, a researcher was treated as a laboratory worker, but I think it probably depends. It's individual question, and whenever you face that kind of a problem, you have to sit, think about it, and talk to the supervisor, and maybe let him know that you're aware what happens. So, but I'm sure that it's just, sporadic cases, and that otherwise most of the people acknowledge the work of the researchers.
Well, good. It gives me some reassurance that academia is not as discriminatory.
To be honest, we speak a lot about overt marginalization of women, but unfortunately, we should speak even more about covert discrimination, which happens in academia. It happens in business circles, political circles as well. I mean, in circles that are really intellectually superior to the others, but there is covert discrimination and marginalization of women, and we have to speak loudly about that.
Can you give us an example? Just so that I think it's useful for our audience to know what do we mean by that covered discrimination, because I think we all face that in our daily lives, but we don't think of those instances.
Yes, but to be honest, there are some. In terms of quotas and numbers, we see that there are a lot of women which are in these different fields. But when it comes to top leadership positions, for example, in our country, in the business circles, I can say that only 23 to 25% are women entrepreneurs. They have their own business. So the problem is when it comes to leadership positions, to top positions, there we have a problem. So we have to empower women to not to stand aside, not to turn a blind eye on that, just to speak loudly about that and to empower them that they can do it. They have to, and we have to speak even for ones that do not have the voice and cannot be heard. So if we speak loudly about the problems, eventually the solution will come.
Absolutely. I could continue speaking to you for hours, but I'm not going to take up all the time for my questions. I want to open it up to our audience members to ask Her Excellency, Professor Elisabetta, some questions if you have any.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Despina. I'm actually from Macedonia.
Oh, great.
I'm very happy to see you
I'm
here.
happy to see you. Thank you for coming.
Yes, I'm happy that we have a representative to speak about women's rights in general and women's rights in Macedonia. So I have a question. I joined this talk a bit late. Maybe I missed it, but what do you as a First Lady maybe do as an initiative to raise awareness for the women's rights and the equality for women in the workplace in Macedonia?
Yes.
I myself have had experience it in the past, so I'm an expat now for almost 12 years. I would like to know what is being done or what has changed since. Thank you.
Thank you. I mentioned about this campaign on gender-based violence. Also, we have done a lot of work on prevention of early marriages, and also speaking about the problems during the COVID-19 pandemic, the problems that women had and doing some online work. I have done a lot of work with the Red Cross and doing telephone calls with, to do a psychosocial help for people and especially women that called and had problems, especially during the lockdown. So we were trying to discuss the problems they had, and to be honest, most of the time they even just called to talk to somebody. Most of them lived alone and had a problem that they did not communicate with anybody. So this situation was really bad. I mean, my husband became president just briefly before the pandemic, and all the work that we have done is mostly during the pandemic time. But also it was, with all the hardships, there were some good points that came out from this pandemic, and we learned how to live with restricted methods of life, restricted social mingling, and therefore we have to look at the work we are doing, and there was more time to focus on the work and improve ourselves. So during this time, I was discussing with women with disabilities, women from lower social background. We were doing some humanitarian help actions several times in the year, collecting humanitarian packages and delivering them. Especially, we worked with the UNFPA to help young mothers and children with disabilities. Also, my work as a healthcare person was during the whole time we were working, even during the lockdown. And it was really hard because we didn't know what we were facing with. We didn't know how to put on and put off our protective equipment. We had to learn everything about the virus. So at the beginning it was really hard, but these are the things that we need to share with others, so it helps us in future similar situation. Let's hope it doesn't come, but we might be even more prepared when we do that in the future.
Thank you. Yes, we have another question.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for all the information. I have a question about women going to college, or girls going to college and then getting in the workforce. What we see in the Netherlands, when they become 30, 35, having families, so then there are less women in the workforce. And then it's really hard to get back in there. And so reaching the higher levels. What's the situation in Macedonia?
Yes, unfortunately, as I mentioned, there is a gap. When they have children, they stop doing research work. And that is when I try to tell them that they have to do it, as I said, even not just for them, but for their children as well. Because that's the way to create a better future for them. If they find out something which is really important, for example, my work is not probably for a Nobel Prize, but it might, because I work with dental biomaterials. So I work in exploring the possibilities of creating new bioactive materials which will be cheaper and can be used all over the world in the low social places where people don't have the money to get proper dental work. So I will help the community in that way. And that's why we have to pursue and we have to encourage the women to continue with the research. Although, unfortunately, you are completely right, we do have a problem with young mothers. In our country, there is one probably a good thing, because I don't know, there is a different situation in different countries, but in our countries we are really connected to our parents, grandparents, and sometimes for example, my mother helped me bring up my son. I was doing my master and PhD in the UK, and I was happy to know that my son, that was like 2 or 3 years old then, was really secure. So that is one of the of the reasons which I was really able to pursue the career without any stopping. But there are women that do not have the help. So that's why I mentioned that there have to be other models. So working part-time, working distantly, remotely, and also having these kindergartens, which will help women to continue with their work.
It's working? Yeah.
Yeah.
And is this also then in the government being, are laws maybe changing to improve and to give these possibilities?
Yes, we have this government. In fact, there are some improvement in the action plans, in the laws and bylaws, but also there were several kindergartens which were built in the last few years, and it helped a lot, because previously it was hard to find a place in a kindergarten. And now we can, just leave the child all during the day and go to work.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
I think, okay, we'll take 2 more questions and then we'll have to conclude.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you, Your Excellency Shamsatu. I think you mentioned the hidden biases or the hidden discrimination that happens. And I want to maybe ask about the role of men when it comes to women empowerment and the education, or we always talk about the upskilling of women so that we can be future ready, but maybe we also need to talk about the upskilling of gender balance.
Yes, that's what we didn't have time to talk about, and this is one thing that I think that it's really important. When it comes to gender balance, we have to teach men and boys that they have to have equal opportunity in bringing up the family and in the jobs as well. Usually we say women can't have it all. I agree. They can have what they aim to, but also men can't have it all, because if you are pursuing a career only, then you miss the beauty of raising the family. So we have to teach our young generations, not just the girls, but also the boys, that the family is really important and they have to share the part in bringing up the family as well.
Mm. Thank you for that question. Last question.
Thank you so much for being here. It's an honor to hear you and meet you in this discussion. I think I wanted to follow up actually on Mariam's kind of the same point, but maybe from your personal point of view, because I think one thing that is really important in women empowerment also is to have a happy life and a supportive partner. So, and especially it's, I think generally until recently, especially in the region, women had this idea that they're kind of supporting the men's role. So especially if the men had a more powerful position, etc. So how was that for you, that experience? How did you make sure that you stay equal in different parts of your lives? And how do you balance this kind of things at home and then maybe in public? Thank you.
That's a great question.
Thank you. It was really interesting question. I must say, I was really happy to have the support from my family from my early ages. They were supporting me to pursue my education regardless of being a girl. Also, afterwards, my husband, my partner, is really helpful and he's supportive, and he supported me during my whole career, and he also helped me bringing up my child, our child. And also, this is really important because if you don't have the support, then you have to do double the work. And, during the pandemic, I will mention it again, the women were the ones that were doing most of the household work. They were taking care of the children, of the elderly. But it has to be balanced. So I had the support from my husband. Our family decisions are decided by both of us. So it's really important to have the support from your nearest families and friends as well.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Please give her a big round of applause. Thank you for the insights shared, for your wisdom, for being with us here today. We're happy to have you back anytime.
Thank you so much for being here. It is a real honor and a pleasure, and thank you all for coming to listen to what I have to say.
Fascinating conversation.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you all for coming as well.